I never thought I'd stand over my father's grave, whispering promises of ruin to a man who couldn't hear me anymore. But that's exactly what I did the day after the will reading, right before I torched the family cabin he'd built with his own hands, the one hiding the safe where he stashed the evidence of what he'd done to me. It started with a single phone call from the estate lawyer, his voice cracking like dry ice as he said the words that shattered everything. "Your parents have rewritten the will, Blakely. Everything goes to your sister now." And in that moment, as the line went dead, I realized the betrayal wasn't just financial. It was the final knife twist in a wound they'd been salting for 20 years. The one where I'd taken the fall for her crimes, her secrets, her goddamn existence. The rain hammered down on the black umbrella shielding me from the Chicago wind as I stepped out of O'Hare, the city's pulse thrumming like a bad hangover. It was 2 weeks after Grandma's funeral, and the air still carried that metallic tang of grief mixed with exhaust. I'd flown in from Seattle, where I'd rebuilt my life brick by bitter brick after they cut me off, telling myself family was just a word for people who'd bleed you dry. But blood calls, doesn't it? Especially when it's laced with old poison. Grandma's wake had been a farce. All lace doilies and lukewarm casseroles in her sprawling Oak Park Victorian, the kind of place that screamed old money without apology. Mom had fluttered around like a moth in pearls, her Botox smile stretched thin, while Dad nursed a scotch and avoided my eyes. Elena, my sister, 2 years younger, 10 times the golden child, had clung to him, her designer heels clicking like accusations. She'd always been the favorite, the one who could do no wrong, even when wrong was her middle name. The lawyer, Mr. Hargrove, a wiry guy with a comb-over that screamed, "Trust me, I'm ethical," had pulled me aside after the service. "Blakely, there's something you should know about the trust." His whisper was conspiratorial, like we were sharing state secrets. Grandma had set it up decades ago, a fortress of funds meant to keep the family afloat through wars and recessions. But the kicker? She'd named me the sole trustee at 18, right after I graduated high school with honors they never celebrated. "Control everything," she'd said, her arthritic hands gripping mine. "Don't let them turn you into them." I hadn't touched a dime. Not when Dad's construction firm tanked in '08 and he begged. Not when Mom's charity galas drained her alimony. Not even when Elena's startup flopped and she came crawling, all tears and crocodile apologies. I'd invested it wisely: stocks, real estate, a quiet empire growing in the shadows. By now, it was north of 50 million, a sleeping giant they didn't know I'd awakened. But the will reading? That was the gut punch. We gathered in Hargrove's office on Michigan Avenue, the looped skyscrapers looming like judgmental titans. Mom dabbed her eyes with a monogrammed hanky. Dad cleared his throat like he was announcing lottery numbers. "We've decided," he said, voice gravelly from too many smokes, "that the bulk of the estate, the house, the lake property, the liquid assets, goes to Elena. She's the one who's stayed close, helped with the end-of-life stuff." Elena beamed, her blonde bob perfect, like she'd rehearsed it in a mirror. "It's just practical, Blakely. You've got your own life out west. We thought you'd understand." Understand? The word tasted like bile. I leaned back in the leather chair, fingers steepled, watching the rain streak the windows. "And the trust?" I asked, casual as a chat about weather. Hargrove shifted, his tie suddenly too tight. "The trust is separate. As per your grandmother's instructions. Blakely retains full control." The silence was a bomb going off slow. Dad's face went the color of bad coffee. Mom's hand flew to her throat, pearls clacking. Elena's smile froze, then cracked like cheap porcelain. "What trust?" she hissed, turning on me like I'd stolen her lunch money. "The one Grandma left me to manage," I said, voice steady as Lake Michigan in summer. "All of it. Every cent." That night, alone in my hotel room overlooking the river, I poured a glass of bourbon, Maker's Mark, and let the memories flood in. It had started when we were kids, back in the suburbs of Naperville, where lawns were greener on our side because Dad's firm built half the McMansions. Elena was the princess. I was the shadow. But shadows see things. At 16, I'd covered for her. She and her boyfriend, some trust fund punk named Tyler, had thrown a rager at the house while Mom and Dad were in Vegas. It escalated, coke lines on the granite counters, a fistfight in the basement that ended with Tyler's nose busted and Elena's diamond earrings lost in the scuffle. But the real mess? The car. Tyler, high as a satellite, took Dad's Cadillac for a joyride. Wrapped it around a tree on Route 59. Total loss. Insurance would have been a nightmare, but Elena swore it was me driving. "Please, Blake," she'd sobbed, mascara rivers down her cheeks. "Dad'll kill me. You're the responsible one."
So I lied.
Told the cops I'd snuck out. Borrowed the keys. Juvenile record. Community service. Dad's belt across my back for disgracing the family. Elena got a slap on the wrist and a new necklace to make up for the stress. That was betrayal one, the kind that scars deeper than skin. But there were more. College, I got into Northwestern on merit. Elena into some party school on legacy. When her grades tanked and she faced expulsion, who forged the recommendation letter?
Me.
Using Dad's letterhead. When she borrowed from the firm's petty cash to fund her coke habit. Yeah. It didn't stop after high school. Who took the heat?
Me.
Accused of embezzlement. Fired for my summer internship. Dad's words still echo. "You're throwing it all away." Son. For what? Loyalty to a screw-up. I wasn't his son then. Just the fixer.
The fall guy.
And through it all, Grandma watched, her sharp eyes missing nothing. "They're users. Blakely," she'd say over tea in her solarium. "The one with the orchids that bloomed like lies. But you're the root. Hold the ground."
Now.
20 years later, they thought they could erase me with a stroke of the pen. The inheritance, the house worth $2 million, the cabin up in Wisconsin, the portfolios they'd eyed like starving wolves. All rerouted to Elena, who'd earned it by playing nurse for 6 months, changing bedpans while scrolling TikTok.
I didn't sleep that night.
Instead, I logged into the trust portal, fingers flying over the keyboard. Transfers.
Yeah.
Audits, tools I'd honed like weapons. By dawn, I'd frozen the family accounts tied to Grandma's peripherals, the joint checking, the vacation fund, even a mortgage on the Oak Park house. Not a penny moved without my say-so. It was petty, sure, but petty's where revenge starts, in the quiet click of a mouse that says, "Your move." The next morning, my phone blew up. Mom first, voice shrill as a fire alarm. "Blakely, what the hell? We can't access the electric bill money. Fix this." "Fix what, Mom?" The will you rewrote without telling me. A pause. Then Dad, gruff and cornered. "This is family business.
Boy.
You don't sabotage us over hurt feelings." "It's not feelings, Dad. It's math. And the numbers don't lie. Elena's text came last. We need to talk. Coffee? My treat. As if butter wouldn't melt in her mouth. We met at a dive on Wabash. The kind with formica tables scarred like old grudges. She slid into the booth. All yoga pants and Lululemon glow. Like she'd just downward dogged her guilt away. Blake, she started.
Syrupy.
I get it. You're pissed. But Grandma always said you were the smart one. Help us out here? I sipped my black coffee. Bitter as truth. Help. Like how I helped when you totaled the caddy. Or when I covered your tuition scam. Or the time you OD'd in Cabo, and I flew down with cash. No questions? Her eyes widened, then narrowed. That flip. The one she did so well. From victim to viper. That was ages ago. We've all made mistakes. But this? Freezing us out? That's cruel. Cruel's a family trait.
Él.
Runs in the blood. She leaned in, voice dropping to that conspiratorial purr. What do you want? Money? A cut? Name it. I almost laughed. As if it was that simple. I want the truth. About the firm. About why Dad's books were cooked in '08. And I took the audit hit. She blinked, feigning shock. What are you? Don't. I found the ledgers last year, when I was cleaning out the storage unit. You signed them. Elena. Falsified invoices to hide the kickbacks from that developer scam. Dad pinned it on me to keep the feds off your trail. I did 18 months probation. Lost my CPA license before it started. For you. The color drained from her face, leaving her foundation clown white. Blake. It was a mistake. We were desperate. Desperate enough to let your brother rot? I stood, tossing a 20 on the table. Tell Mom and Dad the cabin's mine now. Sold it this morning.
Proceeds go to
charity. The kind that helps kids who cover for screw-ups. As I walked out, her voice chased me. You'll regret this. Regret? Honey. Regret was my middle name.
But revenge?
That was just getting warmed up. The days blurred into a haze of calls and cutoffs. The family group chat exploding like a 4th of July dud, fireworks fizzling into ash. Mom left voicemails laced with scripture. Dad with threats of disownment. Elena with a mix of sobs and silences that screamed calculation. I ignored them all. Holing up in a short-term rental in Lincoln Park. The kind with exposed brick and a view of the zoo. Fitting. Since that's what family felt like. Caged animals turning on each other. I dove into the trust like a man possessed. Not by greed, but by the cold fire of reckoning. Grandma's empire wasn't just cash, it was leverage. The Oak Park house? Mortgaged against trust bonds I'd quietly underwritten. The lake property in Michigan? I'd placed a conservation easement years back, locking it from sale without my sign-off. And the real jewel, the offshore accounts Dad thought he'd siphoned for his retirement, traced back to me. Every transaction logged like breadcrumbs, leading to his doorstep. But revenge isn't a sprint, it's a marathon through moral minefields. I started small. A letter to the IRS. Anonymous tip about irregularities in Dad's old firm taxes. Nothing that'd land him in stripes. But enough to trigger an audit. The kind that eats weekends and sanity. Then Elena's consulting gig, the one she'd parlayed into a 6-figure salary at a Loop ad agency. I reached out to an old Northwestern contact, now a whistleblower attorney, and fed him the dirt, how she'd plagiarized client pitches, passing off my undergrad thesis ideas as her own. By week's end, she was on administrative leave, her LinkedIn frozen in denial.
Mom. Ever the socialite. Felt it next.
Her Foundation for At-Risk Youth, funded by trust grants I'd approved, reluctantly, back when guilt still gnawed. I pulled the plug, citing fiduciary concerns. The gala invites dried up. Her Facebook posts turned to humble brags about simplifying life. It was petty, yeah, but watching her empire of empathy crumble, that was poetry. Yet doubt crept in like fog off the lake. Late nights, bourbon in hand, I'd stare at Grandma's photo on my phone, the one from her 80th, eyes twinkling with secrets. Don't become them. Blakely, she'd warned.
Was I?
Flipping the script.
Sure.
But at what cost? Elena called again. This time from a blocked number. Voice raw. Blake. Please. The house foreclosure notice came today. Mom's talking suicide. Suicide. The word hung like smoke. I remembered her breakdowns. The pills flushed down the toilet after Dad's affair surfaced. Bullshit, I muttered, but hung up anyway. Was it a ploy? Elena's specialty, weaponizing weakness. I needed proof. Something to tip the scales. That's when I drove to the old cabin in Door County. The one I'd sold but hadn't yet. Liar. I know. The buyer's contract was contingent. A ghost deal to spook them. The place was a time capsule, knotty pine walls. Stone fireplace scarred from childhood marshmallow wars. But the safe? Tucked behind a loose panel in the attic. Combination my birthday, ironic.
That.
Inside. Ledgers. Yellowed emails. A USB drive labeled E's mess. Heart pounding. I plugged it into my laptop in the musty loft. Dust motes dancing like accusations. It was all there, the '08 fraud. Elena's signatures bold as brass. But deeper, photos. Me at 16. Black eye from Dad's belt after the car lie. Elena at 22. Rail thin. Needles in the bathroom sink. And a letter. Handwritten by Mom. Blakely, if you ever read this, know we did it for the family. Elena's fragile. You're strong. Forgive us. Fragile. The word ignited something feral. I burned the letter in the fireplace. Flames licking the words like absolution denied. But the USB that I copied, encrypted, and sent to a PI in Milwaukee, ex-cop, rates steep but discreet. Dig, I instructed. Find the flip. The report came 3 days later. Over coffee in a Milwaukee diner that smelled of fry oil and regret.
The PI.
A burly guy named Kowalski with a mustache like a broom. Slid a folder across. Your sister's a chameleon.
Kid.
Works both sides. After the firm crash, she flipped to the feds, testified against your old man in exchange for immunity. That's why he took the fall alone. I stared at the transcripts. Elena's testimony cold and clinical. My father directed the falsifications. I was coerced. Coerced? She'd authored half the schemes. Late nights in the office with Dad. Plotting like Bonnie and Clyde. But here's the twist, Kowalski said. Voice low. She double-dipped. Fed the developer intel too. Played informant for both. Made bank on the side offshore. Untraceable. Until your trust's accountant flagged a wire last year. That's why they're circling you now. They think you know. The drive back to Chicago was a blur. Wipers slapping rhythm like a metronome of rage. Elena, the betrayer betrayed? No, the ultimate flipper. Loyal only to her reflection. I confronted her that night, unannounced, at the Oak Park house. The foreclosure sign loomed in the yard like a guillotine. She answered the door in sweats. Hair a mess, vulnerable.
Or so it seemed.
Blake? What? I shoved the folder at her. Read it. Your greatest hits. Her eyes scanned the pages, color fleeing like rats from a sinker. Then, the flip, tears first, then fury. You think you're clean, mister? Perfect trustee? Grandma hated you. You know. Said you were cold, like Dad. That's why she gave you the reins, to watch you fail. Liar. I snarled, stepping inside, the foyer echoing our ghosts. Truth hurts, brother. And this. She waved the folder. Leverage. I go down. We all do. Mom's pills. Dad's grave-robbing side hustle. Yeah.
He sold artifacts from job sites.
We're poison.
Blake.
All of us. Dad's grave. I'd whispered to it.
But now?
The cabin fire I'd planned felt tame. Then burn, I said, voice a whisper. But I'll light the match. As I left, her laugh chased me, hollow, unhinged. You'll join us. Blood always does. That night, the climax brewed. A family summit. Hargrove's office again. Thunder rumbling like applause. Mom arrived sedated. Elena manicured to kill. Me with the USB in my pocket like a loaded gun. We're ending this, I announced, slamming the door. All cards on the table. Dad was gone. But his shadow loomed, the patriarch who'd built us, broken us. Mom cracked first, spilling the affairs, the debts, how Elena's fragility was code for addiction they'd enabled. Elena countered with flips, accusing me of sabotage, then begging mercy, then threatening leaks to the press, heiress wars, sibling showdown. I laid it out, the trust's full power. I could bankrupt them tomorrow, liens on the house, clawbacks on every grant, even a civil suit for fraud that'd drag Elena's name through tabloids. Or, I said, the controversial fork. We split it clean. Trust funds for therapy, not tantrums. No more lies. Mom nodded, broken doll. Elena? Her eyes gleamed, another flip brewing. And if I say no, walk with the will scraps, then you lose everything. Including me. The room pulsed with tension, rain lashing windows like judgment. Who was right? The fixer turned tyrant? The viper seeking venom? Readers, hell. Even I split down the middle. No heroes in the haze. The standoff stretched into hours. Hargrove fidgeting like a man at his own execution, drafting addendums that blurred lines between mercy and manipulation. Mom signed first, her signature a shaky testament to surrender. Tears smudging the ink. For the family, she murmured. The old mantra.
Hollow now.
Elena held out longest, pacing the Persian rug like a caged panther. Her flips coming fast, defiance melting to despair. Then a sly bargain. Okay, Blake. But I get the lake house. Memories there.
You know?
With Tyler. Tyler. The name was a grenade. I'd buried that chapter deep, the boyfriend who'd OD'd 2 years after the crash. Elena blaming me for not saving him when I'd been the one to call the ambulance. Memories? I echoed. Voice steel. Or the safe deposit box you two stashed product in. I know about that too. Her face crumpled. The mask slipping full. God. You never let go. Fine, take it all. But you're no better. Controlling the trust? You're just like Dad. Pulling strings from the grave. The words landed like hooks, yanking at the doubt I'd nursed.
Was she right?
The trust, my Excalibur, felt heavier now, forged in Grandma's wisdom but wielded like a club. Hargrove cleared his throat. Gentlemen, family, this can be amicable. A co-trusteeship, perhaps. No, Elena snapped, then softened. The ultimate flip.
Wait.
Yes. Co-control. We share the decisions. Prove you're not the monster. Monster. The accusation hung,
Forcing my hand.
the controversial choice, cede power, risk her sabotage, or seize it all, become the tyrant they feared. The room waited, breath collective. The storm outside, a Greek chorus urging chaos. The word caught. Visions flashing, the cabin aflame. Dad's grave desecrated in my mind. Elena's pleas turning to pleas for more. But then Grandma's voice. Soft as orchid petals. Roots. Blakely. Not thorns. Co-trust, I said finally. The decision a razor cut. But with oversight. Quarterly audits. No solo moves. And therapy mandatory. For all of us. Mom exhaled. Relief cracking her facade. Elena's smile returned.
Tentative.
Laced with something unreadable, gratitude? Or the seed of next betrayal. We signed as lightning forked the sky. Sealing a fragile peace. The months that followed were a tightrope over abyss. I stayed in Chicago, subletting a Gold Coast condo. The trust's gears grinding under dual keys. Elena showed up to meetings. Sober 6 months. Her flips tamed to negotiations. More to women shelters? Or cut the lake sail? Mom hovered. Medicated but mending. Hosting awkward dinners where we dissected scars over pot roast. But peace? That's a lie we tell ourselves. The twist came on a crisp October eve. Leaves bleeding red on the Oak Park lawn. Elena texted, emergency meeting. Trust office.
Now.
I arrived to find her alone. Hargrove's desk cleared. A single envelope waiting. Read it, she said, voice stripped bare. Inside, a codicil to Grandma's will. Dated last week, her final lucid day. Witnessed by a notary. To Blakely and Elena. Jointly, the trust is yours. But with this charge, forgive, or it dissolves. Blood mends, or it ends. Forgive. The word was a bomb, detonating the fragile structure. Grandma, the puppeteer, had played us all, her root, a test of grace. Not grudge. Dissolves? 50 million poof to charity if we couldn't heal the fractures. Elena's eyes met mine. No flip this time, just raw Elena. The sister I'd buried under blame. She knew. About the car. The fraud. Everything. Said we were mirrors, you the strength. Me the storm. But, together? I crumpled the paper. Heart hammering. The revenge I'd orchestrated. The freezes and fires planned. All for this? A choice. Hold the grudge. Watch it vanish. Or release. Risk the flip again. The climax I'd built. The one splitting us into camps of villain and victim? It shattered. No clear right, my justice was their jail.
Their pleas my chains.
Readers would argue, was co-control cowardice or courage? Did Grandma's twist absolve or indict? I chose. Together, I said, extending a hand. Not for them, for the root, the one Grandma saw in us both. We didn't hug, that'd be Hallmark bullshit. but we called Mom. Drafted the dissolution waiver with conditions. Shares to real causes, not egos. The house sold. Proceeds split for rehabs and scholarships. Kids like me. Fall guys turned fighters. Elena relapsed once. 3 months in, a slip with pills at a holiday party. I found her, not raging, but driving her to the ER, holding her hair back like old times. Why? She slurred. Because blood, I said. The mantra twisted true. Dad's grave? I visited once more. No whispers of ruin. Just a stone. Mossy now.
And a quiet.
Rest easy. We're trying. Was it happy? Tragic? Hell if I know. The trust endures. A shared beast we wrangle. Flips fewer but sharper. Chicago winters bite, but springs thaw. And in the thawing, maybe forgiveness isn't absolution, just the space where revenge dies. And something uglier,
Truhe.
takes root. As for the cabin, I bought it back. Lowball from the buyer. No torching. Just renovations. A family retreat, tentative. Tense.
But ours.
Grandma would have smirked. Orchids nodding approval. In the end, betrayal's a circle. But breaking it? That's the real revenge. The one that leaves you standing, scarred but whole, in the ruins you chose to rebuild.